Now then, the priest would start their morning preparing the altar, washing and laver, and then they would attend into the holy place. There was many high priests, there was only one high priest and there was many priests. And there was Levites, and they all had their specific place of service and things that they were supposed to do. Since we have our three, we're going to use them for all these things. Now then, the primary colors of the holy place is gold, and gold represents divinity. The pieces that were made, the golden altar and the table of showbread, were made of Arcadia wood. And again, it never rots. It never decays. Our God is enduring. He is established from days of old, and He will be here for eternity. Now then, the priest, part of their clothes was no shoes. You would think that around all these things that they'd want to wear shoes, but you see, Adam was made from the dust of the earth. And when we meet God, we come before Him, not in our glory, not in our honor, but just as we are. We become arrayed in His righteousness when He gives us those blessings and that forgiveness. The divine God came and He met man here, the man who was made from dirt. Now then, the piece of the showbread table has a gold crown around its edges. The crown symbolizes authority, kingship, and a finished work. In Hebrew, it is shoham, which literally means to stretch forth or to extend an object with capacity of food upon it. It's closely associated with the Ark of the Covenant. Now, since the Ark represents God's throne or His presence, in order for us to dwell with God in the Holy of Holies, we must first sit at the Lord's table. We must take that moment and have fellowship with Him. So many people, they want to rush into God and not go by His procedures, by His ordinances, by His statutes, and they just want to rush to the throne room. You can't do that. Everything has a pattern, has a purpose. And we, as believers, we need to know His patterns. We need to know His statutes, and we need to follow them. God wanted a table in the holy house where He could come and eat with His children, and they with Him. One of the miracles that occurred is one bite, and they were full. One little bitty bite, and they were full. That stopped happening when Messiah came. And I believe He said, I am the bread that came from heaven. When we sup with the Lord and spend time in fellowship with Him, we get to know Him. When I sit at the table and get to know my family and we discuss the courses of the day, we become familiar with each other and we learn of each other. When we have fellowship here later, we will get to know the people at our table a little bit. And I will impart a little bit of me and they will impart a little bit of them if we do fellowship. There was 12 loaves on the bread that was to be kept on the table. Now the next piece is the menorah, or the candlestick. It means light. God instructed it to be made from pure gold. Now God is the author of light, and Yeshua is the lampstand of the light of this world. When Yeshua was born and He was taken to the temple, in Luke chapter 2, the Cohen Simon said, "For my eyes have seen your salvation, for which you have prepared before the face of all people, to bring a light, to bring revelations to the Gentiles, and the glory of your people in Israel." And John chapter 1 says, "In Him was life, and the life was the light of men." John 8:12 says, "Then Yeshua spoke to them again, saying, I am the light of this world. He who follows me shall not walk in darkness, but have the light of life. The candlestick was made of a beaten work. There was no mold used. It was one section hammered into place. Imagine the skilled craftsman as he hammered and hammered, making the leaves, the buds, the almond that is displayed upon it. It was not made in the tabernacle, but it was made outside. And Yeshua was taken outside of Jerusalem and outside of the presence of God as he took on the sin and God had to turn himself. He was hammered. He was beaten. He was pure divinity through and through. But he was beaten and hammered to a tree. And by this, he was given the right, the authority to be the light of the world, to be the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, to be the name by which all men would bow before him. Yeshua HaMashiach. The golden altar is next. It was for prayer and for worship. It was here that the angel appeared to Zechariah, announcing that he would have a son named John. The angel appeared on the right of the altar. The height tells us, as believers, that prayer and worship is extremely important to God. The golden altar was made from Arcadia wood as well, and it was overlaid with gold. It had a crown around it. Thus, we see a pattern. The priest would get the incense, and they would take it to the golden altar, and they would worship the Lord God Almighty. And the priests would worship, and their incense would rise before God. According to the sages, the smoke that went up never wavered to the left or to the right, but it went straight up into the heavens. There are 4 horns on the altar, just as there is 4 corners to the world, for all are invited to come and worship the Lord. The priest would find himself at the laver, and he would cleanse himself. He would be fed. He would find the light, and he would go to the incense, to the golden altar of the Lord. Now, the building itself is also very, very important. This is a small building. We do not have the correct amount of pillars. Most of the pieces that there is record are built to size, except for a few, like the altar who would not fit in. This was inlaid on silver, on beams of silver, which was used from the money of the redeemed. They had to pay a price to be redeemed. And they used that to put it in, and it held it up. There was planks that were aligned together and united. And they represent us as individuals. Just as we are aligned, we are shaped from that rough, twisted wood of the Arcadia tree that was found out in the desert.